Don't watch this video if you're happy being stagnant and uninspired. For everyone else, welcome. People underestimate the importance of passion projects, the particular proliferation of creative inspiration that merely practicing your craft will do to your imagination. Nice one, me! But seriously, there are tons of benefits to passion projects, and one of them is boosting your creativity. If you're a professional creative, animator, illustrator, filmmaker, whatever, during the day, you are creating someone else's vision. But outside of those work hours, you have the opportunity to create your own. You get to have complete creative control, and you get to break free from the bonds of other people's ideas. You can think completely out of the box and bring to fruition anything you can imagine. Practicing your creativity exercises it. It's like a muscle. Rather than letting it atrophy by always letting other people do all the thinking while you just produce what they tell you to, you need to exercise it. Of course, I'm not discounting the creativity that goes into the work you do already. You're not a robot. Every decision you make needs to have some sort of creativity behind it. But you are, for the most part, being told what to create, either by a client or a director or whoever. With a passion project, you get to really push yourself and your ideas, and problem solve when certain ideas don't work out or you come up against a roadblock. So it promotes lateral thinking, decision making, and troubleshooting, and you learn from your experiences and mistakes as you go. Another reason to work on your own projects, and this should go without saying, but you're going to level up your skills. I can't even begin to tell you how much my own personal projects improved my knowledge of the software I was using, as well as my practical skills, conceptualizing, and problem solving. It's also a fun way to learn new software. Give yourself a little project to complete with it. You learn stuff much quicker and more effectively when you're actively having to find solutions to problems you come up against, and finding out the best and most efficient way to do things as well. A lot of the time, if you do creative work for your job, you end up doing a lot of the same kind of stuff. And it can get pretty boring as well as quite unfulfilling at times because, it's nice to be challenged. It's nice to learn new things. So it can really help to stretch your wings outside of work hours on your own creative projects. That can provide more of a challenge to you and give you a place to learn more things, the kinds of things you want to learn, not what you're being forced to for work. And speaking of learning the kinds of things you want to, that'll also open more doors to getting the kind of work you want. The more personal projects you have that you can include in your reel or your portfolio, focusing on the kind of stuff you're passionate about and want to pursue in your career, the more likely it is that you can actually get those kinds of jobs. So for instance, if you're an animator who mostly works on commercials and you don't get to do that much character work but you really want to, if you focus on personal projects with character animation in them, you can add those to your reel and pursue those kinds of jobs. Or if you want to be a game animator, do some personal projects that would have a place in a game. It's really important to include in your reel or portfolio the kind of work you actually want to do. And what better way to do that than with a passion project? It can also be a massive confidence boost when all that time and effort has resulted in a completed work of art. Whether it's a short film or a book you wrote and illustrated yourself or a graphic novel, whatever it is, seeing it finished and finalized is such a great feeling. It's a huge achievement that you can be really proud of. And there are often times in your journey of creating your personal project, times where you feel really uninspired and unmotivated or stuck, or coming up against an issue that you're not really sure how to solve, but you keep pushing through. Coming out the other side with your final piece of work is such a confidence booster, knowing that you were able to overcome all these obstacles that were in your path, and you ended up finishing it and coming up with something really awesome. You get to prove to yourself that you are really able to do it, and it'll get easier the more you do. It's really good for your own self-image and to battle the ever-present imposter syndrome to know that you actually can do something like that. To give yourself personal projects that might be a little tough but push you creatively and technically, finally figuring that shit out by yourself, you get to prove to yourself that you do actually deserve what you've achieved. You're not an imposter because you managed to do it. That sense of accomplishment is something that's not easy to come by, but it's really valuable in keeping the passion for your craft alive. And it's also just really fun to make stuff that was in your brain and is now out in the world. It's cathartic too. Get what's in there out. Something else that I don't want to put too much importance on because it might start making it less enjoyable or put too much pressure on so it stops being fun. But if you choose to make this a consideration for you, not that I'm saying you shouldn't or anything, that's totally up to you, and I always end up doing this myself, but it's the earning potential. You can monetize your passion projects in some way a lot of the time. You could have a webzine or a graphic novel where patrons or subscribers can get access to a new chapter every week or every month. You could likewise have an animated series and put out a new episode on Patreon or whatever every month. Or start a YouTube channel that can eventually get monetized or get sponsorship deals. Or, you could even eventually create merch for. Illustrators could self-publish a children's book or something and sell copies. There's a lot of potential to turn your passion project into a side hustle. That's the beauty of being a creative. We have so many possibilities available to us. So if you are feeling inspired to start a personal project, and I really hope that you are, because this is something I believe greatly in, it's extremely beneficial and I advocate for it all the time. But if you are, I do have some advice for you, because it is really tough to do. It's hard to see it through to completion, and it can get really daunting. Firstly, plan it out. I'm talking in terms of animation here just because this is an animation-focused channel, but apply this to whatever your project is. But make sure you do have it planned out, like having a script and storyboard, planning your shots, planning your workflow, because if you don't, it can get very daunting very quickly, because it all just becomes a mess when you're not following a proper plan and you're just trying to deal with everything all at once and willy-nilly. It can get very overwhelming and it's not conducive to a good final product. Approach it the way you would professionally. It is meant to be fun, but it's going to stop being fun if it just becomes too overwhelming and messy. You need to plan and you need to take it in bite-sized chunks. It's very easy to get overwhelmed and thus demotivated. So take each step as it comes and do each step to the best of your ability. Don't keep looking ahead to the mountain of work that you know you have to do. Focus on one thing at a time and tackle each thing individually. Also, be honest with yourself about what you can realistically achieve. I'm not saying you need to do something that's going to be really easy, because it is good to push yourself. But it's highly unlikely you're going to make a Sony level 2-hour animated movie as a personal project, right? You're shooting yourself in the foot right off the bat if that's how you start out, because you're going to end up getting really demotivated when it doesn't work out. Make sure that what you want to do is manageable and realistic with the resources that you have. If you want to do something really high detail with realistic lighting and whatever, then you need to manage your own expectations and say, okay, I can realistically make a 2-minute short of this instead of half an hour long. Find out where you can compromise or change something to make it more achievable. You also need to actively and consciously make time to work on your project and try stick to that as far as you can. So whether that's an hour a day after dinner or after the kids are in bed or every Saturday morning, whatever suits your lifestyle, make sure that you try to stick to that as much as you can. Otherwise, it's very easy to lose that momentum and your project just disappears into the ether of your hard drive. It does take a lot of self-discipline and commitment, but that's also where the sense of achievement comes from. Knowing you did that and you powered through and you kept up that self-discipline. It's a great feeling. It can also be good to choose a skill that you want to improve on and focus your project around that. So if, for instance, you want to work on your lighting, pick a project that will put a lot of focus on the lighting, like a moody forest scene with sunlight streaming down through the trees or something like that. If you want to improve your animation skills, then pick a project that will focus a lot on the actual body mechanics and emotions of the characters. Passion projects are not only about improving your skills, but it is a fun and productive way to do it with something that you can be proud of in the end. My next tip is don't focus too much on it being perfect. Nothing will ever be perfect. You obviously need to take pride in what you're doing and do your best, but you also need to finish your project. Done is better than something left unfinished because it was just never perfect to you. You finish it, look at all the things you feel like you could improve upon, and you focus on those in your next project. Use what you've learned and move on. Put effort into it, do it to the best of your abilities, but also keep moving forward. It's easy to get burnt out on the small details and trying to get everything absolutely perfect, and then just get demotivated. So don't let that happen to you. Do your best, but don't be too much of a perfectionist. Just be reasonable. My last tip is that you can also use this as a really great opportunity to collaborate with other creatives. If you're doing a short film, you'll probably need sound design. And that's not something you really want to do yourself if it's not going to be up to par. So get a sound designer to collaborate with you on your project. It gives them an opportunity to practice and use their skills, and it's also going to make your final product look a lot better. Inversely, you could also approach somebody else who could benefit from your skills, like a music artist who might need an animated music video. I actually know somebody who kind of launched their career off of doing that. They approached an artist, they offered to do their music video, and they did, and they got a really great career out of that. Or you could approach a writer who needs illustrations for their children's books. There are so many opportunities out there to collaborate with other really talented creatives and come up with a final product that looks really polished and awesome. Collaborations open you up to other opportunities with other professionals. The person you collab with might suggest you to someone else who could use your services if they had a great experience working with you, and it builds valuable relationships between yourself and your collaborator. You'll learn a lot from the person you're collaborating with and gain a lot of experience you otherwise wouldn't have, as well as getting exposed to and learning about things in other spheres that you might not have known about. So that's my take on passion projects and why they are so vital and beneficial to creatives. I really, really strongly suggest that you try and do some in your spare time. Well, that's it. Thank you to my patrons. Your support is always greatly appreciated. If you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up and check out some of the other videos. They might also have some value to you. And subscribing is a thing as well. Bye!